You walk into a restaurant, you scan the room for half a second, you pick the seat against the wall, facing the door. You didn't decide to do that, you just did it. But the real answer for why is far stranger than habit. Your body still thinks it's in a cave. Not metaphorically, not as some vague poetic idea. Your nervous system is running software that was written for a world with no doors, no locks, and no strangers who mean you no harm by default. That software never got updated. It just got buried under rent payments and Wi-Fi passwords. Think about the last time you sat in a wide open room, a lobby maybe, a conference hall. Did you feel it, that small itch at the back of your neck, that low hum of unease when your back faced the open space? You probably called it nothing. You probably ignored it. But your ancestors didn't have the luxury of ignoring it. For nearly all of human history, open space behind you meant one thing. Something could be coming, and you wouldn't see it until it was too late. The scientist who first put a name to this was a geographer named J. Appleton. In 1975, he published a theory that reshaped how we understand human comfort. He called it prospect-refuge theory. The idea is almost embarrassingly simple once you hear it. Humans feel safest in spaces that let them see out while staying hidden. A cave mouth, a tree line at the edge of a clearing, a booth in the corner of a restaurant.
You want to see without being seen. That's not a preference, that's a blueprint. Appleton wasn't talking about restaurants, of course. He was talking about landscapes. Why do certain views feel peaceful and others feel exposed? Why does a clearing surrounded by trees feel more comfortable than a flat, treeless field? He argued it comes down to one ancient calculation running constantly in the background of your mind. Can I see the threat before it sees me? That calculation didn't stop when humans moved indoors. It just found new shapes to attach itself to. Consider the layout of almost every home you've ever felt truly relaxed in. A couch against a solid wall, a kitchen island you can stand behind while facing the entrance, a reading chair tucked into a corner rather than floating in the middle of a room. Interior designers will tell you this is about flow, about function. Your nervous system has a simpler explanation. Wall behind you, open view ahead. Refuge and prospect, together in one small arrangement of furniture. Here's where it gets stranger. In 1984, a researcher named Ulrich published a study that would go on to influence hospital design around the world. He looked at patients recovering from gallbladder surgery. Some had rooms with a view of trees. Others had rooms facing a plain brick wall. The patients with the tree view left the hospital sooner. They needed less pain medication. Nurses recorded fewer negative comments in their charts. Nothing about the surgery changed, only the view did. Why would a view of leaves change how fast a wound heals? Ulrich's answer connects back to the same ancient wiring, a landscape that resembles safety, openness with cover, greenery with visibility, lowers stress hormones almost instantly. Your body isn't just seeing a tree, it's reading an environment for danger the way it has for hundreds of thousands of years. And when it reads safety, it stands down. You don't consciously do this reading. You can't. It happens faster than thought. This is the part that should really stop you. A body recovering from a scalpel wound, hooked to machines, pumped full of modern medicine, still cared what the wall outside the window looked like. Millions of years of evolution do not get switched off because you're lying in a hospital bed in the 21st century. If anything, that's exactly when the old software runs loudest, because your body is at its most vulnerable, and vulnerability is precisely the condition it was built to protect. There's a researcher who spent much of his career studying exactly this kind of automatic, ancient decision-making. Randolph Nesse, one of the founders of evolutionary psychiatry, described anxiety not as a malfunction, but as a smoke detector, a very sensitive one that would rather go off 100 times for nothing than miss the one fire that could kill you. That's the trade your body made a long time ago, and it never renegotiated the terms. Think about what that trade actually cost and what it bought. A false alarm costs you a few uncomfortable minutes. A missed real threat costs you your life and possibly the lives of everyone who depended on you. From the perspective of natural selection, that math isn't close. Ancestors with jumpy, oversensitive threat detectors survived to pass on their genes. Ancestors with calm, relaxed ones sometimes didn't get the chance to pass on anything at all. So think again about that restaurant. The seat against the wall isn't quirky. It's your internal smoke detector doing its job in a building that will never contain a predator. You're not choosing comfort, you're choosing cover. Now here's the twist, the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Modern life has spent the last 100 years building the exact opposite of what your nervous system wants. Open-plan offices, glass-walled meeting rooms, floor-to-ceiling windows with your back to the room. Architects call this transparency. Your amygdala calls it a nightmare. Studies on open-plan offices have repeatedly found higher reported stress and lower reported job satisfaction compared to enclosed or semi-enclosed spaces, even when employees say they like the aesthetic. You can love the look of a space and still have your body quietly fighting it all day.
Isn't that strange that the very design meant to feel modern and open is on some deep chemical level the layout of exposure, the layout of no refuge? Environmental psychologist Judith Heerwagen spent years studying what she and others came to call biophilic design, the practice of building spaces that satisfy these ancient preferences instead of ignoring them. Her research kept circling back to the same conclusion Appleton reached decades earlier from a completely different angle. People don't just want beautiful buildings. They want buildings that let them feel what a cave mouth once let them feel: watched over but not watched, sheltered but not trapped. And it's not only about walls and windows. It shows up in how you sleep, in how many humans feel a flicker of unease and total darkness, even in a locked house with an alarm system and a dog by the bed. Darkness once meant your best sense, vision, went offline while every threat in the world kept its eyes open. That fear didn't disappear because you installed a nightlight. It just went quiet, waiting. Ever notice how a hotel room feels different the first night? Not bad necessarily, just alert. Your sleep is lighter. You wake at small sounds that would never register at home. Researchers have measured this directly, finding that one half of the brain stays measurably more vigilant than the other during a first night in an unfamiliar place. Almost like a night watchman keeping one eye open while the rest of you rests. Your ancestors slept in shifting locations too, and a brain that stood partial guard on unfamiliar ground was a brain attached to a body more likely to see morning. It shows up in something as small as why a crowded elevator feels tense, in a way an empty hallway of the same size doesn't. Too many bodies, too little escape route. Your brain is still counting exits, even in a building with fire code signage doing that job for you. It shows up in the strange comfort of a weighted blanket, of a low ceiling in a reading nook, of a child's insistence on building a blanket fort instead of just sitting on the open floor. Small, enclosed spaces with a clear way out are not a modern invention of coziness. They are one of the oldest comforts your species has ever known, repackaged in flannel and throw pillows. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud. None of this is broken. None of this is a flaw you need to fix with breathing apps or productivity hacks. This is a system that kept your ancestors alive long enough to have you. It is, by definition, a success story. The tragedy isn't that the system exists. The tragedy is that almost no one tells you it's still running. You're not anxious because something is wrong with you. You're anxious because a Pleistocene threat detector is trying to protect you from open-plan offices and video call grids full of strange faces staring back. Think about that grid for a second. Rows of unfamiliar faces, all facing you directly, all at eye level, none of them retreating or looking away the way a passerby on the street naturally would. To a brain built for small bands of familiar faces on an open savanna, that grid can read less like a meeting and more like an audience of strangers who won't stop watching. No wonder so many people report feeling drained after back-to-back video calls in a way an equivalent number of in-person conversations never seem to cause. The womb hasn't changed. The rules your body is applying to it are just centuries out of date. So the next time you walk into a room and your eyes go straight to the corner seat, don't call it a preference. Don't call it a habit. Call it what it actually is. 100,000 years of survival, quietly steering you toward the wall. And the next time that unease creeps up your spine in an open, exposed space, remember that you're not imagining it. You're not being irrational. You're listening to the oldest advisor you have, one who has never once stopped working the night shift, even after the cave went dark for the last time and the world outside it changed beyond recognition. Maybe that's worth sitting with for a moment. Every ancestor you have, going back further than any name you could ever trace, survived long enough to hand their genes forward. Every one of them faced a night in the open or a shadow at the mouth of a cave and made it to morning. The instincts you shrug off as irrational quirks are, quite literally, an unbroken chain of correct decisions stretching back into deep time. You are the current end of that chain, and it is still making decisions for you, whether you notice or not. You walked into a restaurant. You picked the seat against the wall. Your body still thinks it's in a cave. And somewhere, underneath the noise of rent payments and Wi-Fi passwords, it still is.